Hi, I'm Yohann, and this is the Value Paths Podcast. Today's episode is another interview to shine a light on how self-serve founders approach building their companies. Here's a recent chat I had with Seth Miller, the CEO of Rapchat, a mobile app that millions of people worldwide use to make music on their phones. They've raised 7 million in funding and have over 10 million active users. I was blown away by Seth's approach to self-serve. It's sophisticated. They're working with segments, different kinds of monetization models, outcome-based user timelines, exciting stuff. And they're only beginning to take things to the next level. Rapchat is a B2C app, and it's a different context than selling to businesses. But I think there are a ton of lessons that B2B founders can take away from their story nonetheless. Here we go. Thanks so much for joining us, Seth. It's a pleasure to have you on. I'm particularly excited to talk because we don't see mobile apps represented so much in the B2B self-serve space. At least we haven't interviewed too many so far. So I'm excited to dig into what kind of self-serve system you've put in place there. To begin with, I thought we could anchor the conversation with your revenue goals for the next year. Without getting into specifics, roughly, how much are you looking to grow your revenue from self-serve over the next year?
It's a good question. I think for us, and we just wrapped up some yearly planning stuff, double would be a good year. I know that sounds crazy, but the bar is pretty high for growth. I think the space is growing
Right.
really fast. And yeah, if we could double what we did last year, that would be a huge win. That's really the target. Previously, it was a little like last year, there was quite a bit of turbulence with UA getting more expensive and the economic conditions. And I think it was tough for a lot of companies to hit that growth trajectory. But this
Right.
year, yeah, we got a pretty clear sight on how we can accomplish that.
That's exactly what I want to dig into today, the how. Let's start with challenges. What are the biggest challenges on your journey to doubling your revenue?
Yeah, another good question. I think for us, we're in a unique space where unlike B2B or maybe some of the other companies you're working with, like we have a really strong like freemium product
Yeah.
similar to Duolingo, and we actually started out free for several years. So our goal is to democratize the creation of music and really enable anyone to make music without the barriers. And so that's been awesome. And you said how many people we've been able to do that for, but I think like trying to figure out how to build the right product that people can pay for and people can afford as well. Like that's a real challenge. Like our segment, it's artists, right? It's or aspiring
Right.
artists. So it's a little different than like meditation apps or running apps where you're appealing to a much more like wealthy segment. So I think we've done a lot of experiments around pricing and packaging, and one recently that I'm really excited about. But yeah, I think figuring out like basically people love our product and we keep making the product better and we feel really good about where we're going. I think it's all about how do you translate that into business value without sacrificing the core mission of the business.
Yeah, that's what we're all here to figure out is how to take love for a product and turn it into business value.
Yeah.
But also, I'm so sorry that I misunderstood. For some reason, I just assumed musicians, businesses. But yeah, when you say you're democratizing creating music on your phone, you're talking to everyone who has a desire to create music and not musicians particularly, right?
Exactly. When I started because I enjoyed freestyling with my friends, which is just putting on a beat and rapping. So it's kind of, yeah, the same idea that like a Visco or Instagram put a camera and made everyone a photographer, quote unquote. That was really our angle into music. And we've seen it. We have a lot of different varying types of creations and intent to create. So people just have fun with their friends, but then we do have those that really want to make the next hit on Spotify or TikTok. And that's a very different
Right.
segment, but our tool to date has been flexible enough to kind of appeal to a variety. So
So let's dig into something you said a few minutes ago. You said that the monetization was pretty recent and it was entirely free up until that point. Tell us a little bit about that change and what drove it.
Yeah, I mean, I think at some point a business needs to make money. Now, for the past couple of decades, when it comes to consumer and, in a lot of ways, consumer social, which we're somewhat in that space, we're on the path to a Facebook or a Twitter where it's grow as fast as you can, get as many users, don't worry about revenue. We'll do that after the IPO or before the IPO. It was just all about like user growth. And, at some point I think we realized that wasn't going to be healthy for us long term, like being on that treadmill.
Okay.
And
Okay.
it also focused our efforts as well, right? Again, at some point you have to make money. And we see this even with
Right.
Twitter or public companies that put that off. And then you're stuck with an ads model, which like I definitely did not want to do. So
Right.
yeah, I think it was just the right time. And we were building a bunch of new stuff that I think we could categorize as premium. So yeah, it was just the right time, I'd say, for where we were as a company.
Okay, that makes sense. Tell me a little bit about what you mean when you say focused our efforts. Did you zero in on a segment of users that you wanted to monetize?
I wouldn't say a segment, but we zeroed in on building new stuff into the product that we could package up as a subscription. So,
Okay.
as an
Okay.
example, we used to have a pretty basic recording studio with 12 vocal effects, but then we built a whole new studio with over 50 vocal effects so that we could offer give away still the OG 12 for free or whatever, but then we could offer the rest of them as part of a subscription. So we do like to continue to optimize and stabilize existing functionalities and flows. This was kind of like, what can we do that's new, will add value to the user, and is worth paying for, basically. So it's just
Okay.
thinking in that lens.
Okay. Okay. So you saw that stuff was working. Here's what people are using. Let's build out more. So amplify the feature or amplify I'm not sure how to describe it actually.
The product, really.
Okay, so amplify the product, and eventually users will bump into a gate that says something like, if you want to use all 50, then here's how you can do that.
Correct.
How did it work when you first rolled this out?
Surprisingly, very well, at least just
Nice.
initially. I was quite like, wow, we're about to turn this on for hundreds of thousands of users that have been free. I was a little like worried about it. I will say just the initial conversions and some of the initial metrics. And we were making money, right? Like a dollar is more than
Right.
zero. So it was actually quite exciting, but then I think we quickly realized and we got a little more advanced in our analysis, and we saw a lot of opportunities to improve the experience, improve some of the other metrics. So it's been about 2 years, 2.5. We spent like this past year really honing in on like the whole journey. How do we improve retention? How do we improve initial conversions? Like this past year was a really tactical effort to make that whole journey much much better than it was the previous year, where it's just kind of like, hey, we got to like get this out there and launching.
There's so many questions I want to ask, but maybe we could do like a highlights. If you spent the last year optimizing the journey for better retention, what were the highlights? Like, how did you figure out which parts of the product to improve?
Yeah, I think the biggest highlights were about uncovering the highlights. Not to get too meta, but it's just we have a lot of functionality and a lot of data and also a lot of
Right.
different segments. We definitely spent a lot of time. I think early last year, a game changing thing was, okay, let's learn about our users more in the onboarding journey. So like asking them, hey, basically, why are you here? Like, what do you hope to get out of the product? What's your level of music making? Trying to tease out that type of information and then
Okay.
feed that into just learning about what proportion of this, have fun segment versus aspiring to like become the next music star. And then we can bucket all of our roadmap into those personas as well. So yeah, that was one, just like doing a lot of discovery work last year, and we're finally starting, I would almost say, to like wrap up the biggest summary of it. But yeah, we definitely learned a lot. We talked to a lot of customers. We did a lot more qualitative. We really ramped up our like survey and even just like ability to do discovery. So like onboarding surveys, but
Okay.
then life cycle messages. So anyways, that's just like one bucket, discovery. The other highlights I think are around um, zeroing in on what people really needed fixed in the product,
Okay.
which
Okay.
isn't as fun, but it is super important. So quality was a big theme. And when we, as part of the discovery work, it's a lot of the reason people would either churn on their subscription or leave after a month of creating or leave after trying the studio. Like we just found out a lot of it was like either the quality or a bug or a crash. And so we just spent a lot of gritty hours like stabilizing, and we've replaced our audio engine, like stuff that's not sexy that you wouldn't write a PR about or something, but
Right. Right. Right.
like it made a huge difference on both
Right.
platforms. And yeah, I view last year as foundation building, more discovery, and we did make a ton of progress on like our unit economics and all that. And this year is we feel like we have a really great chance to go big on a few areas, and you'll see a lot more stuff that's like would be PR worthy or that is like a totally new set of functionality that we're ready to kind of build on top of that foundation.
So the discovery kind of revealed what people were there to do, and the unsexy kind of efficiency work was removing any obstacles in the way to getting them to those outcomes that they were interested in.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. And I mean, as part of that, of course, when we replaced our audio engine or we replaced our vocal effects engine, like we added the industry leading vocal effects that people would recognize. So we were able to kind of do that with also some splashy stuff. But yeah, that was pretty much the theme.
So when you were creating segments, asking people what they were here to do and so on, how many segments did you see? I imagine with so many new users,
Yeah.
you would have seen a ton of different intents.
Yeah, and to be honest, we're still iterating on these questions, right? And I feel pretty good about this last iteration that's not live, but yeah, quite a lot. I would say we, in terms of buckets, roughly narrowed it down to 3 or 4. But then at the end of last year, it's tricky because people also move between segments with our
Right, right,
product.
right.
As an example, we had a user that is now a couple years, this artist named Jaleel was on Rapchat, and he made his first song ever on Rapchat. It was like the first time he ever recorded over a beat or like recorded any music at all. And
Okay.
then 3 years later, someone sends me a podcast interview of him mentioning this, and he is now like one of the top up and coming artists. He's touring, he's all over, he's like a music star now. And
Wow.
so that's crazy, right? Because like on day
Right.
one, if you just look at like onboarding questions in a vacuum, it'd be like, I'm just here to have fun with my friends and record my first song. But then he caught on like wildfire. So within a month, he's already into a different segment where it's like, oh, I want to be a music star. And
Right.
um, so I think, yeah, we're still tweaking it. There's definitely a few themes that we know exist. It's just about how do you ask better questions. And I think a lot of my revisions recently are inspired by the work you guys have done and trying to understand the outcomes over just like, the more surface level, I'm a beginner or something. That's okay. This
Right.
could be your
Right.
first song, but what's the next thing? And it's hard to do that in
Right.
onboarding, honestly, too. I think you're somewhat limited. I think it needs to be more ongoing than just the first process, but we definitely have revisions that we want to get in there that help us better understand like what people want in the end, like what success looks like. And some of these next features we're building are around bets of what people want their future self to be. We feel pretty good about them, and it even guides the roadmap, like for sure.
Right. Okay, okay. So tell me a little bit more about that. So you get these segments, people self select into one of them, but you know that that could change at any time in their journey. So what do you do with that information? What's step two?
Learn for sure. I think it gives you a lens to view all the rest of the activities in the business, right? So
Right.
you could think of life cycle marketing. We do something that's called challenges, which is a very like we have a whole social platform on top of the tool itself.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we have like challenges and everyone has profiles and feeds, but it helps us as examples see who might be the best fit for learning about this new challenge we launched. Or it even can help us when we're doing if we're tweaking paid acquisition at all, like what campaigns are
Right.
bringing in what type of users. Like that's a
Right.
very fascinating thing we did where we just turned off all ad spend for a week and saw what types of users we got in versus when we were spending on channels. So yeah, it just gives you a lens. We're nowhere near having a perfect life cycle journey for each segment, but right now it's been, I'd say, initially a lot of learning and a lot of like helpful context for when you go to do whether it's lifecycle marketing or growth or
Right.
copy even, right?
Super interesting stuff. Is the goal to, at one point, support all of the segments?
Yeah, I mean, I think to a degree we are right now. It's more about like what do we want to invest in next? Going back to when we turned on subscriptions, it was the same thing. At that point, it was more hypotheses about our segments, but looking at these different types of creators on our platform and then thinking of, okay, who do we add the most value for? Who uses the product the most? Who comes back? Who would be most willing to pay to unlock more functionality or level
Right.
up? In a lot of ways, the subscription product was best fit for one or two segments. And then this next product we're working on, we're taking the same approach where like we know, without giving, sorry to be so vague, but like we know one of these segments really wants this specific set of features that will help them advance in their music journey. And so like
Okay.
we're building a
Okay.
whole nother product to fit that use case. And yeah, that's what we're like working on right now that we're really excited about.
Okay. Awesome. So this new product is going to be one of the main pillars in your strategy for doubling revenue.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
How did you correlate the segments that you knew would want to pay for a subscription? Like, how did you test that hypothesis out? Did you correlate that user behavior with revenue in a particular way?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's obvious quantitative ways you can do that if you look at like engagement or retention and use that as a proxy, but even that in some cases can be misleading. I think
Right,
some of
right,
it's
right.
just like gut feel and intuition and you have to ship it and test. If you look at general apps, right? I mean, there's just a power user curve, and I think it's just about thinking through, like for me, I'll just give you an example. Okay, we
Okay,
have people that come to the platform that maybe just want to make their first funny song and send it to their friend. The probability of them converting to a subscription seems pretty low, right? But then the people that come that, hey, I'm already making music or I really want to get into this, the probability that those people would be interested in stuff like premium vocal effects and all this other auto mastering, all this other functionality is way higher. And they're typically like a little more older or ability to pay. All these variables kind of line up more. So it's just,
okay.
yeah, I guess just power users. But for us, it's like how you slice and dice that based off segment.
Would you mind going into some of the detail on how you slice and dice this data? Because it's super interesting.
Yeah. Where do you want me to start? I think the first thing is trying to discover intent, and maybe it's like initial intent is more specific, but you
Right.
know, again, just this idea, are you here to make a song and share with your friends, or are you here to like actually make a quote unquote real song, and you're going to go look for beats and you're going to play through thousands of beats until you find the right beat, and you're going to write your lyrics down and you're going to layer all your vocals. Like you can start to see these paths branch out.
So the product behavior tells you how serious someone is, and you've placed those monetization gates at they just appear at the right time at the right place. So if someone is serious enough, it's inevitable that they're going to bump into it.
Yeah.
It sounds like the segments are a judge of seriousness almost, because that's how you decide whether someone can be monetized or not.
Yeah. But I would, again, like we're still just trying to get better because sometimes even just the initial intent can be not necessarily misleading, but maybe not even the best indicator. So I think we're trying to level up from having people self-select through a series of questions into a specific segment to kind of more what you guys talk about, see what we can discover about what outcomes they want and work backwards
Right.
from that. So it's not as static, if that makes sense. If you want to become a
Yeah.
music star, or you just want to have fun, or you want to get better at making music, those are all like easier journeys where the actual attributes of the segment matters less. And I think that's
Right.
kind of where we're upgrading our own models this year to fit that.
So once you do have these outcomes and you have discovered um, what we call the critical pathway. So, in order for that outcome to happen, the absolute necessary steps that users need to go through. Once you figure out outcomes and you figured out the critical pathway, is the monetization strategy going to evolve? Is that going to decide, like, for example, where you place the monetization gates?
In a way, yes, but I don't, not necessarily like where we place paywalls. I guess another way of answering it, like subscriptions are obviously a great way for apps to monetize, but we don't think it's like the end all be all. And, you know, we probably will build additional subscription options, but based off the journey and based off kind of the experiences we hope to enable in the future, like we see opportunities for one-off purchases as an example, or peer-to-peer transactions as another example. So I
Okay.
think it just has to naturally layer into what products you're adding or features. And, you know, yeah, people just jump to subscriptions all the time now. But I think we're seeing a
Right.
big shift in consumer behavior as well. And even I do think will experiment with, yeah, various models, but all in the sense of fitting to what best suits our customers. And um, yeah, there's a lot of tactical stuff there, but yeah, I think it's just aligning. Okay, they want to unlock this value. What's the best monetization or price point or packaging for them to do that? That makes sense for everyone.
You're blowing my mindset.
Dude, I'm probably just talking back to you all the stuff that you already said.
No, but the scope of it, like you're dealing with different monetization strategies across a huge number of segments with over 10 million users.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you. That's far too kind.
One obvious place that I want to dig into is data. If you've divided users into different segments, does that mean you're tracking different metrics for each of them? Is the product experience segmented as well?
To a like very light degree right now. Again, I think we're trying to continuously get better at this, continuously iterate
Okay.
on it. But yeah, I mean, especially as we build newer products or add new things to the ecosystem, we're constantly thinking about what set of users is this best for? And sometimes that's multiple segments, like creator, any sort of creator tool. Like as an example, we added the ability to generate album art. So you like when you create a song, you can add a photo and give it a title and share it. So we had
Right.
the ability to generate album art from AI prompts. And that's a feature that applies, that's interesting to anyone that shares a song. So it's very broad. It applies to basically everyone. But then there's also others that maybe are way more powerful or specific or advanced that we will try and activate with a certain set of users. So When we think about what we're building, we obviously think of who it's for. That's probably the biggest thing up front before we start building. And
Right.
then that drives kind of everything from that. And then obviously when you activate the feature or you promote it, and whether it's an experiment or just a full blown feature, like that's also how you would measure it too. Like, did this like proportion of users or this set of users like adopt this feature meaningfully? What do they think about it? What's the quantitative and qualitative data? We try to stay on top of that as much as we can. Sometimes I envy like other
A
verticals
simple
because
product.
yeah, you probably just have like one type of user, and it's like, I mean, I'm lucky enough to have a lot of other founders that do apps, and it's like they have one use case, and I'm like, man, that sounds awesome for a day or so. But I love this stuff. Like,
To be fair, I don't think the one use case really exists, because even if your product does a really simple thing, people could be recruiting it into all sorts of outcomes. And that one simple thing could feature in a number of different critical pathways. But
true.
yeah, but the
That is
scale
true.
of what's happening at Rapchat is like exponentially more complicated than that.
Or we're making it more complicated. We're trying to simplify it, but yeah.
So if you, let's just say you pushed out one of these features and it saw a lot of engagement and it was on the serious side, you thought you could monetize it, what would the process be for actually monetizing it? Do you start off with a feature being paid and then figure out whether people are actually paying for it? Or like, do you have features that you monetize to begin with and then they move to the freemium, or the other way around? How does it work? What are your experiments like there?
We've experimented with all of those different ways you mentioned. I can
Okay.
think of features that we launched last year that we thought like made sense to completely make premium or paywall, that we ended up realizing like, no, let's not do that. Yeah, we've experimented all over the board with that. It's kind of feature specific, or depending on how you monetize. Like, as an example, when we did vocal effects in a whole new way, where there's like tons of vocal effects, there's different categories of vocal effects. That's something that maybe we could have just completely paywalled, but then that kills the freemium free user experience if they can't use any vocal effects. It's always about balancing for us, like the core free creation experience. Like, we never want to mess that up. And so how can we weave upgrades to that tastefully, that also like increase business value, is a dance. And yeah, it depends. Like, I'll give you another example. Like, we allow people to auto master their songs, and so some of this technology we're licensing, that's AI auto mastering, removing background noise, making it crispy, has all these presets. Like, that's a feature, since there's a variable cost for us, that we do have to completely paywall that based on just like business requirements to a degree. You know what I mean? It's very fluid. If we ship one and it doesn't have an impact on revenue, but might have an impact on engagement and retention, which then will long term impact revenue, we can change it after if we want, or vice versa.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So, do you track which features make the most revenue?
Yeah, no, for sure.
So, the trade off with freemium is you have all of this flexibility about where to place the monetization gate. But at the same time, this monetization gate, by definition, is usage based and not time based. So, if people don't use the product enough, they don't get to the gate at all.
Well, it depends. I mean, just as a plug, we switched to managing all of our paywalls remotely through a company called Superwall. And
Okay.
that gives us the ability, it's super dope in the sense that we can design contextual paywalls, and it also gives us
Okay.
the ability to decide like who gets what paywall, or whether we want to run like drip special offer campaigns, or you hit this feature, so we'll design a paywall around this specific value prop, and then we're able to
Okay.
pipe all of our
Okay.
paywall data into an amplitude, so we can actually analyze which flows or which packaging. Yeah, we got pretty sophisticated last year with that and learned a ton through that being able to experiment a lot quicker than historically, where you're having to ship every time to the app store, like a new paywall in this position.
Nice. Okay. So I'm finding it difficult to imagine, but how would you take all of this up to 11 this year? The system you've got at the moment, which sounds like it works well, how are you going to turn it up?
Yeah, I think it's a couple things. And again, this is just top of mind because we're actually going through some of these exercises right now. But I think for like our current product, it's figuring out what that outcome is. And we know for a large percentage, that outcome is to grow in their music journey, like to get to the next level. So we're developing like a set of features that will help our artists become bigger or better or improve them and help them advance, if that makes sense. So that's like a whole
Okay.
nother product, which will be interesting. So we'll be introducing like another product, and really at a kind of like macro business sense, that's increasing the value generated by like our current audience or current segments and growth.
Okay. I have to interrupt with a question because I'm a little
You're good.
confused. What is the difference between a feature and a product? So is this product going to be different from Rapchat or in Rapchat? In which case, why is it not a feature?
Yeah, sorry. I use them somewhat interchangeably. When I say a product, like we're working on a set of features that will probably be inside of Rapchat, but will be their own subscription tier.
So this would translate into like a new plan.
Yeah, correct.
Understood. Makes a lot more sense. Please continue.
Yeah, we will make a lot of progress doing that, and maybe that will take a lot of our efforts for sure. But we're also looking at, okay, how do we increase this total pie? Like, how do we appeal to more people and expand our potential essentially? And so some of that looks like looking at other markets, right? We haven't done a ton of localization yet, even though we've had music created in pretty much every country, but we haven't actually put our foot on the gas in that arena. So like that's an opportunity. Another opportunity is like going beyond just a lot of the music is hip hop. Like how do we expand beyond that? So you could see like in terms of strategy, again, off the top, it's really okay, we definitely know a set of things we need to build that should increase the value for our users in the business. But then what are these other adjacent opportunities? There's the opportunity for expansion, and we want to place some bets on that in addition to doing what we know we got to do, which is right in front of us.
So ramp up the acquisition, new subscription plan, and adjacent music making. But when it comes to the core, the 10 million users that you have at the moment and how you're monetizing them and the segments within the people who are with you right now, that part of the strategy doesn't evolve. That's like a well oiled machine at this point.
For the most part, I mean, it's continuous improvement and iteration. But yeah, I mean, pretty happy with where we got it to last year. Made a lot of progress on it.
Okay, let me wrap up with a few more measurement questions because with 10 million users, like your quant game must be on point. What metrics would you look at on a day to day basis?
Yeah, I mean, on point. We're just always learning. The data is just always messy. There's always ways to make it cleaner. There's always ways to get better at analyzing it. There's always good questions. Like I think it's just a consistent learning process for us. Yeah, I think we've made a lot of strides in how we use data, but I also always think we can be way better. So that's just a general note. But yeah, for us,
Totally,
obviously
totally
in the
fair.
subscription arena, there are just standard metrics, conversion, CAC, LTV, all these standard kind of subscription metrics. We'll have that in a bucket and we'll track that. I'm more personally interested in some of like just general growth metrics, like what percent of people share a song in their first day, that type of stuff I like to track against. What are the most popular sharing channels? How are we growing? Like what's the organic versus paid versus anything else?
Okay.
And then depends. We have challenges. We have a lot of social stuff too. So looking at, okay, we launched a challenge. Let's look at how many people entered over time or whatever. Yeah, I mean, my amplitude is crazy. But yeah, I think the super core ones that are important to the business, a lot of the subscription unit economics, and then obviously I just think there's like growth unit standard metrics, whether it's just like new users, activated, retention, like we cover all
Okay.
those like bases, and then we have stuff specific to us. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, I've been working towards, I would say, a new set of metrics and a new dashboard that lines up more with this outcome based thinking. That'll be like my next iteration on one of my dashboards, because to me, I really just want to know, get a better sense of the amount of people that want to accomplish something, and how many accomplish it, and have that be like a really driving force in my analysis of how we're doing.
And whether the accomplishing of it, how much money the accomplishing of it makes you.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And last thing on that, like this concept related to the stuff you guys have been working on, but like Kathy Sierra, I don't know if you know her
Of
stuff.
course.
Yeah. So I feel like maybe I'm just late to the game on all these concepts, but I just read her like book and watched a talk, and that just encapsulated a lot of the concepts I've been thinking about. I think we can come up with new ways to help level up our artists, right? So
Nice.
yeah, sure, we have the tool, like, but the tool is like table stakes, right? What do you do with the tool is gonna like change or make or break how much you love the product, how long you stay around, the willingness to unlock more value. And
Right.
so I'm really excited because we do have these paths, I would say, that would help people become a better artist, or what she says, a better photographer. And we've built
Right.
over like the years. That's the thing. We've built so much shit that like there is a lot of packed functionality in our product, but I have just the new lens of how we can better like package it into paths, right? So, okay, you might not
Right.
join a
Right.
challenge before you make a song, or you might not join this specific challenge in your first week, or in your first, like almost thinking of it even like a game, like you're like a level 2 music maker. Like this set of features probably isn't like best for level 2. Like, why don't you like just make a quick this type of song. But then once you hit like level 10, okay, let's introduce all these other concepts. Yeah, I don't know. There's just a lot I'm excited about on that front.
Yeah. Yeah. And even from a measurement point of view, like how you monetize each of those levels, how you measure progress along each of them and tie them back to revenue, and measuring LTV across, like if you have 10 levels, that's amazing. That means getting people through more levels equals more lifetime revenue.
For sure. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. Wow. I am so excited for Rapchat's journey, Seth. I think we need to have a part two of this, like same time next year. We catch up with
Putting a
Rapchat.
lot of pressure on this here. No, I appreciate it. Yeah. No, that'd be great.
But thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And there's so many lessons to take away and so many insights that I think our audience could benefit from.
Well, I have to thank you both, because your podcast and a lot of the content's been a huge driving force, and I just appreciate y'all sharing all that information. And yeah, it's really helped some light bulbs go off and impacting quite a bit of what we do.
Amazing. I have the biggest smile on my face.
Love it.
Thank you so much. Okay, I will end the recording here. Thanks for joining us.
Of course, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.